Hello everyone, welcome back to Play the Game with Steve. It's been a while since I've done some of these little videos here. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to do a deep dive, an understanding the mechanics video on Magik Ilyana Rasputin. A couple of my friends have been asking me, people online, like, Steve, can you go back and to make these videos where you kind of just explain the mechanics of the character, what it's trying to do, and also what synergies work well with this character within the different aspects. So we're going to be doing this. I'm going to try to go as fast as possible on the basic cards and how the rules and the mechanics work. And after that, what we're going to go is we're going to go into all of the different aspects and really try to show the synergies of what the characters can do. So without further ado, here she is, Magik. All right. Right. So Ilyana Rasputin here is a mutant with the mystic trait, which is rare. We don't have a lot of characters with the mystic trait in the game, so that's always fun to get a new one. She's got a recover of 3, a hand size of 6, 10 hit points, and an interrupt. When you change to hero form, you choose a spell in your discard pile and put it on top of your deck once per phase. Okay. Now, why is that good? So when you do your opening hand and you take your first mulligan, if you have a card with the spell trait that you're like, oh man, that's too early for this card, it's very good. You just discard it in your mulligan, and then when you flip up, you get to take that card that you wanted, that spell card that you wanted to use, and you just bring it back on top of your deck. Now, why is that even better with Ilyana Rasputin? Is because when she becomes Magik, a mutant, sorry, not a mutant, a mystic X-Men. She's got a thwart of 1, attack of 2, defense of 2, and a hand size of 5. Well, she has something. She says here, play with the top card of your deck face up. That's amazing. That can synergize with a lot of cards from some of the different aspects. There's a couple of allies that synergizes with that. But the best part is, once per phase, you can play the top card of your deck as if it was in your hand and reducing the cost of 1. So what does that mean? That means if you have it's technically a +2 hand size. So instead of thinking that she has a hand size of 5, she has a hand size of 7 because when you do the math, you have to spend cards to play cards. So if you have 5 cards in your hand, a card that costs 1, it will cost you a card from your hand plus the card that you're playing. So that's 2 cards, and then no, technically you have 3 left. But because of her ability lets you play with that top card of your deck, that means you have 2 extra cards and reducing the cost by 1. So if you have a card that costs 1 on top of your deck, it's free. It's a free card from the top of your deck. So that is bonkers on its own. And that means you still have your 6 opening cards from your hand to be able to do other stuff. So that is something that you definitely want to consider when you are doing your deck building. Now, let's take a look at her signature ally. Her signature ally is her brother Colossus. All right, so he's got 3 costs, 2 thwart, 2 attack. He's an X-Men, 3 health with toughness. There's an interrupt here. When an enemy attacking you, when an enemy attacks you, you play Colossus from your hand, paying his resource costs, and declare him as the defender without exhausting. So he's on top of your deck. The enemy attacks you. You want to put him on to play. So that's really good. And if he's on top of your deck, instead of costing 3, he costs 2. And he's got the additional synergy that if he's on top of your deck on the villain phase, you still pay 2 for him, put him into play, and then he defends for you and just loses his toughness. That is just super, super solid. And again, a beautiful synergy between Colossus and Magik. All right. Then let's look at some of her upgrades. All right. Now, the first card is the money card, the Limbo. So Limbo is a 1-cost support from a dimension. It says response. After the villain phase begins, you exhaust Limbo, swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. So that is amazing. So if Colossus is in your hand, again, you switch it with the top card of your deck. Easy money. Then you can do the interrupt when the villain attacks you. Very good. So after the villain phase begins. And then there's an action. So if you don't want to do that on the villain phase, you can always do it during your turn. And it's the same text. where you exhaust a limbo and swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. So again, very, very fun. So you can definitely manipulate the top card of your deck to be what you need, either on the villain phase or on the hero phase. But on the first time you play Limbo, you always get to do it for free. All right. Then there's a couple of upgrades. First thing is the mystical armor. Then there's the magic crown. And then there's the soul sword. Now, there's one common denominator in all these three things. All right. They all have the resource symbol. And that is going to be something that we're going to be looking into to understand. Let's start with the sword. The sword says it's a weapon, it's restricted. So we're only allowed 2 restricted weapons per character. So Magic's basic attacks gain piercing. So that is really interesting to think about when you are playing Magic and in what aspect you want to choose. So if you focus on the sword, it says here, while the top card of your deck has the fist or the wild resource, Magic gets +1 attack. But in all times, her attacks will have piercing. So you don't have to worry about tough on any of the characters. So that is extremely cool. And that is a deck building aspect that we might want to explore. But it's only on her basic attacks. It's not whenever she attacks. Right. The second one, let's look at the thwarty one. It costs, oh, and it's a cost of 1. So again, if this is on top of your deck, you get to play the sword for free. Okay, so the Magic's crown. Magic gains steady. Again, that is a static effect. So she will always have steady. So she'll need 2 stuns or 2 confused to actually get the status lock. While the top card of your deck has the mental or the wild resource icon, she gets +1 thwart. So then she can thwart for 2 or attack for 3. And then depending on what's on top of your deck, again, with limbo. So you see the synergies right away with her permanent cards and even with her other cards. And the last one is the mystical armor, and she gains retaliate 1. So that is something else that we might want to build upon. So we have piercing that we can look for deck strategies around. And we also have retaliate. Now we know that retaliate is good for protection. And this one says same thing. If while the top card of your deck has a lightning or a wild, Magic gets +1 defense. So she can get the +1 attack, +1 defense, +1 thwart, depending what's on top of your deck. So right there here, if I look just at these 3 cards, I know that if I'm going to build a Magic deck, I'm going to try to incorporate as many wild resource icons in my deck so I can benefit from everything. So if there's a wild, I get the +1 attack, I get the +1 thwart, and I get the +1 defense. So that is something that is going to be interesting to think about when I'm deck building. All right. So those are her upgrades. Now let's take a look at the events in her deck. All right. So she's got 4 different events. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different events. Sorry. The first one is called Scrying. It's a 0 cost spell. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You draw 1, you discard 1, and you put 1 back on top of your deck. So that's again, deck manipulation is what you want to do with her hero kit. So this allows you to put the resource type that you need, and it allows you to filter your deck. Again, amazing card. And there's only 1 copy of this, so it's something you want to do, but you don't need to really focus upon. Now, she's got again an attack. She's got 2 attacks, 2 thwarts, and 2 defense events. So let's take a look at the Exorcism. Exorcism is a spell of a thwart. Oh, I started with a thwart. I thought it was the other one. Soul Strike is the other one. So this is the thwart. Remove 4 threat from a scheme, and if the top card of your deck has a mental or a wild resource, you confuse the villain. So now that gives her access to confusion. So that's another part of deck building. If I can confuse the villain, I know in Justice there's a bunch of synergies with villains that are confused. How can I build with that in mind? So again, that's how you want to think about it when you're building. Now let's take a look at the attack event, which is the Soul Strike. Hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy, and if the top card of your deck has a physical or mental, stun that enemy. So now we have access to confuse and stun with a character. And the last one is the Magic Barrier, which is the one cost defense spell. So this is one that you might want to swap with your hand to put it on top of your deck. It says Hero Interrupt Defense. When an enemy initiates an attack, you prevent 3 damage from this attack. It's not a full defense card like a backflip or a shield block, but it has an added benefit. It prevents 3 damage, which is still not bad. And then if the top card of your deck has a lightning or a wild resource, deals 3 damage to the attacking enemy. So that's also pretty strong. You can definitely build a deck if you're thinking about protection. You can build a protection deck that is going to focus around the retaliate and lightning resources to be able to be effective. So that's her spells. Okay, and then that's her 4 events. So now there's one card that she has 3 copies of. And anytime you have more than 2 copies of a card, that is a card that you might want to focus on more. So here it is, 3 copies of the Stepping Disc. So the Stepping Disc is a superpower that costs 1. It says, ready your hero, choose a magic card in your discard pile, not named Stepping Disc, and put it on top of your deck. So it could be any one of all of these cards. You could put Colossus back on your deck. You could put Magic Barrier on top of your deck. You can put the Soul Strike. You can put the sword. So if ever you lost it or you're like, oh, I can't pay for that now, your Stepping Discs allow you to recur cards that are from her Magic kit, which is amazing. So if you combine this with her mutant ability, Interrupt, when she flips to hero form, she gets to play spells. So the spell cards are here, the Soul Strike, the Magic Barrier, the Exorcism, or the Scrying. So she has all these spells, and you might want to use these Stepping Discs to get, if you lost Limbo, if you lost Colossus, or if you lost one of her other upgrades, then you want to get one of those cards back and put it on top of your deck. If you haven't used your ability, obviously you can use that to make the card cheaper. So that is it for her kit. You see the synergies. You see she has access to ready herself. So again, really fun with the piercing. So if you want to be, if you want to go for an attacking strategy or a thwarting strategy, there's all these different things that you can do, and it's always going to depend on what's on top of your deck. So now, without further ado, let's do some deck building, and let's start looking at the basic cards that might be interesting for you. All right, we're going to talk about some of the basic cards here. I'm going to probably put some basic cards in with some of the aspects, just so it's easier because I don't want to kind of diverge. So the first thing, obviously, we're going to put the Sorcerer Supreme, this 2-cost upgrade that came in the Doctor Strange hero pack. You can only play if you have the Mystic trait. Get a +1 here hand size. So that gives you basically a hand size of 8, because 6 plus the -1 from the top and the -1, it just and the fact that you can play from the top card of your deck. This is an auto include in every one of your Magic decks. It's not even a question. You have to run this card. It unless there's 3 of you guys playing Mystics, then obviously fight for it. First one to get it gets it. But definitely the main card from the basic set that you want to run. Now, the next one obviously is going to be 1, 2, or 3 copies of Spiritual Meditation. The reason why this card is so good with her, it allows you again to filter and allows you to dig through your deck to go find the pieces you need, their spells. It's a 0 cost draw 2. So basically it's free. It's a free card. If you run 3 cards in your deck of 3 copies of this, even if you're at 43 cards, these cards don't count. They have the mental threat, the mental resource, so it actually synergizes if you're going to do the thwart thing. But most of all, it's just there to help. So it's going to help with digging to where you need to be and what you're trying to do. So spiritual meditation is highly recommended running a couple of these in your deck. Even if you're not going to run 3, maybe you run 1 or 2. This you'll see it's never wasted. It's always a good. The next one is probably more for solo play. Basic spell. It's a 2-cost event. So if you have that on top of your deck, it's a 1-cost event, which is pretty cool. And it's heal 3 damage from an identity, so it doesn't have to be yours. Remove 3 threat from a scheme or deal 3 damage to an enemy. So it's 3 3 3, and for with her ability, a 1 cost. Definitely something you might want to consider for solo play. In multiplayer, I don't know how much I would put this in. The only reason I would put this in is if I'm trying to do something specific. So if I'm playing in protection, I want to be the healer. I can heal 3 damage from people, but I can only choose one. So that's where I'm a little, that's why I'm a little iffy. So it's very situational, and the cost reward benefit of this card for me is on the low side, but it's not a card that you should completely not consider for your deck. It is a good card. It just sometimes you, depending on what strategy you're going to, it might be on the man, I need to cut a card. It's probably going to be that. All right, here is something that I would recommend running 3 copies of. And the reason why, it's because of the resource type that is on the card. And that is X Gene. X Gene you can only play if you have the mutant trait. So you have to play it when you're an alter ego. But because you have access to Confuse, it's a lot simpler to play this. Now, the reason I would recommend running 3 in the deck is because you might get it in your opening hand, which is amazing. You get to play it. And then the other 2 copies, even though you can't play it, they have that wild resource cost that is going to trigger off everything. So if it's on the top of your deck, yeah, it's unfortunate you can't play it, but if you're using it on the limbo turn, you put it on top of your deck, and then the villain, when the villain attacks you, you have always a mental, so you get all the benefits from all the other cards that you have. So for me, this is definitely a card to include multiple copies of because of that. Here's one. Like I said, I don't recommend running 3 or 4 of these, 2 or 3 of these, but maybe having 1 or 2 if you're like, oh man, I want to have more of the wild resource cards. It is resourceful. Resourceful is a 1 cost upgrade, and you can deck thin with that. So it means you can lower the cards in your deck to see by playing these cards. And this one, what's good about it is if it's on top of your deck, you can always play it after the villain turn, and you can put it on your table. It gives you a wild resource, but it also diminishes your deck size. So which is very, very important when you have these type of characters that want to you want to see your events more often. You want to see those stepping discs all the time to recur your events, to be able to do more things, to confuse more often, to stun more often, and really have a control over the game. So cards like Resourceful will help you diminish your deck size and then have some fun with that. All right, here's another one. The Blood Gem. I'm not a big fan of the Blood Gem. I accept that it's a 0 cost upgrade that I can just discard to Caught Off Guard. The fact that it's 2 damage to generate a wild resource, I think it's a little pricey. Unless you have ways to recover a lot. Again, if you're playing the basic spell with the Blood Gem, there's ways that you can have fun with that. But for me, it's definitely not one of the priority cards. The reason I would include it in my deck, though, it is because it has the wild resource again to be able to trigger what we want. Then this is 100% an include, a Death Focus. It only pays for 1 card in your kit, but it's your best card. So if you can get a free stepping disc every turn that you play this, if you have Death Focus on turn 1, bam, also deck reduction, but this pays for your stepping disc, so it allows you to ready and put a spell on top of your deck and just keep going through the cycle. So for me, Death Focus, there's 3 copies of that. This can pay for it every turn. Bam, money. So that for me is always good. The next one is Symbiote Suit. Again, maybe not to play the Symbiote Suit. Oop, my camera just went a little bonkers. Go, go, go. Stay, baby, stay. All right. The Symbiote Suit. Obviously, it's a 4 cost. If it's on top of your deck, it's a 3 cost. That's really, really solid for what it does. The +10 health, again, it would help with a bunch of different strategies. The extra encounter card is not that powerful. It's not that hindering when you know, especially with a character that has a lot of confuse and stun. That's a lot of control. So for me, the Symbiote Suit is 100% a good include for her. Increase her health to 20. You're just laughing after that. All right. Then we're going to talk about some honorable resources. So I don't think the double resources here are super necessary because of what she can do, because of the way her deck is built, and you want to play some stuff. But one resource that I think is extremely interesting is the digging deep. Now, after this card is discarded from the top of your deck, add it to your hand. Now you're like, Steve, why would I want to do that? Well, there's a couple reasons. All right, the first one that really helps with that is the scrying. So if you have a digging deep on in your top three cards, you just put the digging deep in the discard pile, and then it's going to come right back to your hand because it's always discarded from the top of your deck. So look at the top card of your deck, draw one, discard one, and put one back on top. So that for me, after digging deep, goes to the discard pile from the top of your deck. Boom, boom, boom. Because you're looking at the three, right? So you discard it from the top of you're looking at the top three, you're discarding it from the top of your deck. So that means it triggers the digging deep, which comes back to your hand. So that's how the interaction works with scrying. But there's also other things that I think it goes really well with. It doesn't synergize with spiritual meditation because spiritual meditation draws the two cards. So it doesn't synergize with that. But there's other things that it's going to synergize with in a second. Now, the reason why I think this is a good card is if you play Face the Past. Well, not only do you get to exile Face the Past, but what you're entering is called Belasco. And he's just a 1/1 with Villainous with 6 health. So he's not that bad of a deal. But the force response is after Belasco activates against you, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, and if Ruler of Limbo, so that means if you get Shadow of the Past, you put those cards under him face down. But if he's coming out and the side scheme is not there, Belasco just makes you mill 3. And again, boom, 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 digging deeps. They hit your bin, they hit your discard pile. You're just laughing because it's free resources. So again, it's a very small payoff. It might work the first time, it might not work. So there is way there it can fail, but having the digging deeps in there to just give you more resources and the fact that they're wild resources, again, synergizes what the character is looking for in what he wants to do. Now, here's 3 honorable mentions that I did not include in the deck. The first one is the X-Jet. I don't think you need the X-Jet unless you go get it with build support. Again, she has so much resources available with the discount and everything. I don't think it's needed, but if you want to add it, it's not a bad thing. A couple of honorable mentions again with the wild resources for your deck. Deadpool, again, he's not traded, so you can actually play him. And then there's, he does other this random stuff. And then the Venom. So these again, a lot of the wild resources to help trigger your upgrades and your spell cards as long as you have a wild card. So these are some of, I'm not saying include all of this when you deck build, but these are the cards that I would most likely look at first. So these would be my priority cards when I am deck building for Magic. Now let's go take a look in aggression. All right, let's talk aggression. All right, so first things first, if we're going to be doing an aggressive, there's 2 really fun synergies with Magic that I see. The first one is obviously the strongest one, and it involves the ally Cosmo. Uh, the ally Cosmo is a 2 cost guardian, 1/1, 1 attack, 1 toward, 2 health. It says when Cosmo attacks or towards you name a card type, you then discard the top card of the deck, and if that card has the name type, combo does not take any consequence damage for this use. So because you get to see the top card at all the time from this character, then Cosmo is always a sure thing. So that is really cool. So you can really go all in on Voltron. Voltron means when you add tons of equipment to a character. So you would, because he's a guardian, you attach the energy spear. So now he's attacking for 3 with piercing. Then you add the enrage to it. Again, these are all 1 cost cards that you can put on top of your deck and play them for free. Then he's attacking for 5. It says he takes an additional damage, but because it says this, because if you always name the right card type, you never take additional damage. You never take consequence damage at all. So this doesn't have a chance to resolve. So that's why this synergy is really fun. And then you can add the sidearm. So now he's got ranged. So he can attack for 6 with ranged. So again, Cosmo power synergies, and if you play with a second person who's playing leadership that has all the get readies and stuff like that, can be a really really powerful format. Again, I suggest adding cards like marked to your deck. Again, it's physicals. It's going to give her also plus attack, and it's going to give overkill. So that's really good. So then you're attacking for 6 with piercing and overkill. It's just money. And then a War Room is a nice little include. It's a card that I don't really play too often because I don't normally use allies that much. But in this scenario, this synergy, War Room is basically after an ally attacks and defeats a minion, remove a threat from a scheme. It's free threat removal for 1. So for 1, like after a couple of turns, it's just going to pay for itself and it's just going to keep the threat down. Obviously, this is not as good in multiplayer. But even in multiplayer, just even that 1 threat sometimes, oh man, I have it. Oh, there's 6 threat on that team, but I can only thwart for 5. And then, let me just attack with thing, kill the king, kill a minion, and then remove a threat. And then there you're good. So it's always a card that's going to be useful. It's just how useful is it actually going to be? So yeah, so you can definitely build a synergy just around Cosmo, adding energy spears. Obviously, you can have Bug as well in there to continue with like the Guardian synergy. So Magic Guardians, I think is pretty fun. So you have a lot of synergies that you can play off the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then like the energy spears, the enrage, the marks, and then you can just have fun and just really go to town for like an aggressive, very aggressive deck that's going to deal tons of damage with this. And if you don't want to play the Guardian strategy, you think, okay, I can play more. I really want my hero to be the star, not have an ally do all the work, which is fine. Like I said, every to each his own. Some of the cards that synergize well with her is obviously Magic Attack, and then you can bring back the cards like Digging Deep. So again, you can see how the Digging Deeps will synergize with the Magic Attack. It's only if you have a Mystic trait, and then you choose an enemy, you discard 5 cards from the top of your deck, you deal 1 damage for each card discarded. So if you choose 3 cards, you deal 3 damage. If you discard 5 cards, you deal 5 damage. So again, so this is a super versatile attack card. It costs 1. It's on the top of your deck. You play it for free, or you just add martial prowess or a combat training. Just increase her attack. So she's always going to be at 3 attack. And then you add cards like Power of Aggression to have the wild resource again to have some fun. And then you can just have a lot of fun with the Yonborn experience. So because Yonborn is restricted, so if you have your sword and Yonborn, like you're basically double fisting, and then having just like 2 weapons in 2 hands, it's pretty crazy. And then just spending physical resources to just burn, and then deal extra damage every time you attack. I would highly recommend including a card like Blood Rage. It's one of these little 1 cost cards. Again, you really want to have some of these cards that when they're on top of your deck, you can just play them for free. And this one, after you defeat an enemy with a basic attack, her attacks are going to have piercing. So most likely, you're always going to be defeating something. You take a damage, draw a card, and then you can just kind of keep going. I really like Fluid Motion because once you do an attack event, you can increase your attack size. So 1 or 2 in the deck, this is always fun. And then Battle Fury, same thing. It's these little cost upgrades that you can just play for free. And then they all have they have a lot of lightning. So again, it can synergize on the defense and on the attack. So that's why I like these type of cards. And that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for aggression. So yeah, so there's obviously different strategies, but these are the cards that I would consider depending on what strategy you want to play. And now let's talk about my favorite aspect, protection. So here we go. This is very simple. Because she has retaliate when she has her armor. you can build off that. Like I said, we can find the synergies here with the retaliate. So obviously, I really like Dauntless in this, so she can go up to retaliate too. And then there's also all the little cards that you might want to add to her, like honorary X-Men and endurance, just to bring her health pool up. You can even add the symbiote suit, if you really, really need the extra health. I think you don't need the symbiote suit, but here it's always good to have increased stats as well. Uh, then once you want to be doing that, you have some really cool spells. You have the shield spell, which is really, really fun because that is just 100% damage reduction. So that's even better than your event. It's a zero cost, and then you have to discard cards. Again, digging deep, coming back with some synergy here. So, and because it's basic, you can add it in whatever deck build you're building. So the shield spell, and then you run the stepping discs, and then just bring back the shield spell, pretty much guarantees that you'll be invulnerable throughout the game. So you can always just take up all the attacks and just deal maximum of damage. All right, so if you're going to be running that kind of strategy where you take no damage and just deal damage to the villain for doing stuff, obviously cards like Flow Like the Water, Nerves of Steel, all the card payoffs like Armored Vest, Unflappable, Change of Fortune, especially Change of Fortune now. It's such a good card. Obviously, the hard to ignores. You can just go with the whole slew of all the upgrades and equipment. So you can really focus on a perfect defense strategy with her, especially with cards like Shield Spell that you can recur en masse. Then, if you want to do the defense thing and you still want to have some fun, running cards like Defensive Energy will give you the extra card draw. Desperate Defense will allow you to ready, and then cards like Repost, then the villain's attacking you. You're dealing a minimum of 5 damage because it's actually 6 damage once you have the Flow Like the Water. 6 damage on the villain turn. It's pretty bonkers, and you take no damage. You get to ready and do all these kinds of synergies that are super, super fun. Anyway, this is definitely a great way to play Magic. Uh, Again, you have your events. Once you put all your cards on the table, or most of your cards that are all one cost, which you could play for free. So if you're any type of lucky on turn one, you can have like 3 or 4 of your one cost events, one cost upgrades on the table, and your deck is already on fire and already going strong. All right, so that's one strategy that you can use. The other strategy, which again kind of plays off of the retaliate and everything, but it is also mostly more for multiplayer. This is also good for multiplayer and solo, but this for multiplayer, you can really synergize with serve and protect. Now, once, especially if you're running in these scenarios where you're playing against something that puts a lot of threat at a time. I'm thinking about Drang that can go up by 2 per player. I'm thinking about Nebula. If she gets out of control with her ship, she could put like 18 threat on the main scheme. But you can just come in with Serve and Protect, and then just 2 people can pay for this card, or if it's on top of your deck, and then you exhaust an X Force and an X-Men, prevent all the threat, prevent that threat, all of it. Even if there's 40 threat going on the main scheme, it doesn't matter because you're exhausting 2 characters to prevent 40 threat, and you get 2 tough status cards. This is by far one of the best threat mitigation cards in protection in the game because it doesn't matter the amount of threat. It's not when the villain schemes. Uh, yeah, it's whenever any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme. So that is why it's so freaking powerful. So then you're like, well, Steve, what am I doing? What kind of characters? Well, then you play cards like Children of the Atom because all of your X-Men characters are now X-Factor and X-Force. And then you can even put yourself an X-Force recruit to increase your health. And then you get all the good allies. There's Polaris that actually gives you more tough status cards. Nightcrawler that just can prevent the damage, and you can just keep replaying him over and over. And then my favorite for this strategy is Rogue, if she just dings a damage on Magic, boom, easy money. She's now a 4/5, or she could become depending on what's on the top of her deck. She can become like definitely most of the time a 3/4 or a 4/5. So that's very, very interesting. Obviously, the protective training on Rogue because you want to keep her alive unless you want to just run some medical teams and stuff like that. Power of protection again for the wild resource pays for most of the cards because the protection's a little bit more expensive. Definitely want to be running cards like Ready for a Fight because she has access to Confuse. This is such an easy and very cool card to play. It allows you to play protection and still flip to alter ego to be able to play protection on the villain turn. So you confuse the villain, he schemes, he doesn't scheme, he's confused, and then he wants to scheme against somebody else. You're just like, well, buddy, I'm ready for a fight. I'm flipping up, getting rid of that card, and then I can trigger all of my stuff. I can trigger the retaliate. So ready for a fight works with the first strategy I showed you and works for this. So for me, in protection, these two strategies that I just showed you are definitely the way to go. Yeah, and then again, putting down some X-Force characters. I'm like Elixir, some of the cheaper ones there that cost 2 or 3 resources. Those are the ones you want to be playing. All right, so let's go look at Justice now. All right, let's talk about that justice. All right, for justice, justice is not one of my aspects that I enjoy playing in solo, just because I feel like it's very, very powerful with the amount of threat removal control, which just says my character is going to win. It's just going to be a matter of time and how I win. My only concern is actually damage. Threat is never going to be an issue when I'm playing in solo play. What I like about Magik here is because of her access to confuse, that fear of losing to threat is vastly diminished. But let's look at strategies for solo play, and we'll look at strategies as well for multiplayer. All right, so obviously one of the great cards that you want to be running is the only spell card in Justice, and it is the Zone of Silence. You discard, you can only play it if you're a Mystic, and then you choose a side scheme. You discard 4 cards from the top of your deck, and then you remove 1 threat for each card discarded. Again, the synergies with the digging deep. Always, like I said, it's so simple. That's why I say digging deep is such a good card for her, just because in whatever aspect, the synergy is always going to be there. All right. Obviously, we have access to confuse. So if we have access to confuse, what does justice lack? It always lacks a little bit of damage. So if we add cards like a couple copies of flow like a butterfly, it's going to give us the lightning resource we need when we want to run a defense event, but it's also going to give us every time we attack the confused enemy, it deals extra damage. And that is for me very precious, whether it be solo or in multiplayer. So let's look at the payoffs if we're going to be running cards like that. So obviously we have Heroic Intuition, which it's almost a no-brainer that we want to run. If you really want some extra control, you can add the Van. You can add all these other cards that are good. But I think the thing I want to talk to you about the most is Wolf's Bane, because this is, I know I was going to go on Float Like a Butterfly, but I just like realized like Wolf's Bane is way better than all of these cards because Wolfbane thwarts for 2. She's an X-Force character. And after she thwarts, you name a card type. You discard the top card of your deck. Oh, look, if it's a Digging Deep, it comes back to your hand. But it said, oh, it comes back to your hand anyway, even if it's not a Digging Deep, because it said if that card is the name type, you may add it to your hand. It's so bonkers. So whatever it is, it's an upgrade. It's something. It's always going to be accessible to you, and it's extra card draw. So you want to be running either honorary X-Men on her or playing again Children of the Atom, giving her a mission training. So now she's thwarting for 3, drawing you cards. So that is just a sick strategy that you want to use. If you're again, we're going to be using Float Like a Butterfly for extra damage. We add cards like Chamber. Chamber takes 1 less consequential damage after he attacks a confused enemy. So then he takes no damage. He's attacking for 2 plus 1. So he's attacking for 3 and taking no consequence damage. This is why allies are so powerful. But you have to run the right allies in the right deck. to make sure that you see the strategy and the synergies. So this is good whether it be in multiplayer or in solo. The synergies are real. And then if you want even more synergy with the allies, you have Dazzler that you can add that gives you a confuse if you don't have your spells. All right, then you have the wild cards. Obviously, with the powers of justice, we have a lot of cards that are costing like 3 or 4, so that's good. We have the passions of justice that bring the thwart events that we're going to be running, our exorcism or our zone of silence that add +1. Then if there's like chance encounters, that's a card that I rarely play. But if you're running one way or another, chance encounter is a great card to add because then you go get your Colossus to your hand, and then you play it, use with Limbo, put it on top of your deck, and then you have a perfect deep. Now you're not even worried about damage because you have Colossus that blocks for you, and then you can bring him back and just with chance encounters and one ways or another. So there's all this super fun synergy. And then you can go with the two main synergies for damage and threat removal. Gunboat Diplomacy or Mutant Peacekeepers. These cards are just phenomenal. Again, if your Dazzler is an X-Men X-Force and she got 3 thwart, if Magik is becoming a 2 or 3 thwart. So that's for 1 cost, it's 6 threat removal and 6 damage. Man, that's insane. The power of the Gunboat Diplomacy. So obviously you have to exhaust 2 characters. It doesn't matter because your characters are doing so much work. So that's why I think Justice is very powerful in solo. In multiplayer, it's still very strong. Magik can definitely get the job done in solo because of the confuse. She's already mitigating an activation of threat. So aside from the main scheme going up naturally, she always with the confuse there ready. It's so much, and once you get your board set up, then the control just keeps going and coming. The other thing I forgot for the basic, I would add, I because I talk about basic cards, I would add probably 1 or 2 uh, first aids just to heal. Let's say your Wolf's Bane, because again, she's card draw. So for 1 resource, you get extra threat removal and you get extra card draw. So it's such a good investment for Wolfsbane to add a couple of first aids in a justice style deck. All right, let's talk about leadership. All right, well, the first spell in leadership we have is summoning spell. Oh, guess what? It synergizes with what card? Digging deep, of course. Why? Because it says hero action, discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an ally. Put that ally into play under your control. For me, again, super synergy card with those digging deeps. And then you get a free ally for 2. It's pretty good. It's on top of your deck. It's for 1. So you can definitely want to include some big allies in your deck. And let's take a look at some of the other things I like. I love that there's a lot of wild resources here. So innovation, effective leadership, power of leadership. These are all resource cards with the uh, with the wild trait. So again, to synergize with our cards, and that again, this is what we are doing here: is we're finding cards that synergize with what our hero wants to do. So yes, so that's why we're putting these down for Magik because we want the wild resources. All right, the other great card here in leadership, it is an ally too. It is Domino. So Domino's response after you use one of Domino's basic powers, swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. Again, so if you failed on what you wanted on top, you didn't get what you wanted on top. Well, Domino can fix the problem, which is for me an absolute monster. All right, so then we have Children of the Atom. Why? Because we're going to be again focusing on X Force and X Men. They work so well together, so it's hard not to play into that strategy. All right, one of the things I really like about this is if we're going to be playing this, we're going to be playing cards like Mutant Mayhem. It is an alliance card, but Mutant Mayhem says choose an X-Force ally and an X-Men ally, return them to their owner's hand. Those players play those allies, ignoring their resource costs. So again, super strong synergy with Children of the Atom and Mutant Mayhem. And then let's look at the allies we really want to have go and come in. The first one I think is Cyclops. This is one of the better ones. when he ETBs, he chooses an ally, and until the end of the phase, it chooses an enemy until the end of the phase. All the damage is dealt +1. So that's really, really strong. Very good synergy. Cyclops wouldn't be complete without Phoenix. So she enters, you ready an X-Men ally, and you heal it. So again, when you have the Children of the Atom, all of your allies are X-Men, and so they all trigger themselves. We got the big girl here, M, Psionic X-Men. She after she comes into play, she defeats a minion with fewer remaining hit points. So she's got 4 hit points. That's really good. And then we can cheat that. We can cheat also other cards like that with we'll talk about it in a second, but we can increase her health or remaining hit points to defeat even bigger minions. And then Pixie, again, that allows you to bring something back that you might have lost. So that's a lot of the Mutant Mayhem strategy. These are the kind of core cards that you want to play off of those. Uh, Here is what I like to add as well, the Uncanny X-Men. Even though they're all X-Force trait, as long as they're all X-Men trait, they get the bonus, so they cost 1 less. And sorry, my kid just came down the stairs. And then all of our X-Men allies get +1 health. So for me, it's really, really good. And the +1 health is stagnant, but if you want them to cost 1 less, each of the characters has to be the +1. All right, and then a couple of events or supports that I like also. They're pretty cheap. And then so the Med Lab. So when an ally goes, because she has access to Confuse, she can go there. You can use one of those big allies like M that deals 2 consequence damage. Okay, he goes under the Med Lab. You flip to Alter Ego, then come back. Then I also like Squared Off as one of the events. That one's super fun. You discard cards, and then your next ally you play from your hand or from the top of your deck. So you can play M for free because she's 1 less from your deck and then 3 less. So that's really good synergies here between these two ones. The other card I really like is Won't Stay Down. If you put yourself an honorary X-Men, you can only play this card if you have X-Men or X-Force trait, but you are only X-Men and X-Force because of this while you are in hero form. If you give yourself an honorary X-Men, even when you flip down, you get the bonus. So then you can trigger this card in Alter Ego and play this card in Alter Ego as well. And then you just discard this card and return an X-Force X-Men. It's all about recurring like Cyclops or M or Phoenix, just recurring all of your better allies. If you prefer to just ignore this strategy and just go for oh wait, sorry, I forgot one. To me, my X-Men kind of plays with the X-Men strategy as well. Because basically they're all X-Men except for Domino. So you just run X-Men, and with to me my X-Men here, and since you can kind of see what the top card is pretty good. So that's kind of like the X-Men strategy. If not, if you just like your Colossus ally, I just you can kind of play any whatever strategy you want with Magik. Not focusing, let's say, just on allies and ally spamming, which is very strong in multiplayer and in solo. But if you want to try something different, I really like Ready for an Action and just keeping Colossus in front of me to block while I do everything else. So it's a tactic card. I enjoy this card and just playing it and just giving Colossus tough status cards every turn. So he's always just soaking the hits for the boss. And then when I get ways to bring Colossus back, are they with them won't stay down and stuff like that. So this works if you want to just have a colossal strategy. So that's it for leadership. Again, leadership for me, those are kind of like the main strategies that you want to go with her. There's nothing really more that I would say more sexy about it, except that there's like a lot of synergies with the wild resources, and then it's what you want to play from that. Uh, if you want me to do some Deadpool, I'm not going to do Deadpool, and I feel like Deadpool. If you just run the stick to itiveness and you run the bomb and you run the other thing with her, it makes her 1 cheaper when it's on top of her deck. So actually, maybe even 2 cheaper. So you can play that card. It's not again Deadpool. The pool strategy for me, I think it's just very blah. I enjoy it sometimes, but it's not something that I enjoy most of the time. So there you go. So let's close this up. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for our friend Magic. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Again, the point of the video is not just to build decks for you to go and try out. The point of the video is to show the synergies within the different aspects and what this character can do and how the game, her mechanics affect the type and what kind of deck builds you want to kind of build around it to be effective in a multiplayer scenario or in solo. So I hope that was helpful. Please leave comments, leave your leave any notes. Maybe I forgot a few cards that synergize really well. It's possible. I try to do these in my free time, but as you saw, I chopped up a lot of the video. I edited and try to make it as short as possible. But yeah, Magic, super fun character, very, very powerful. All of the mystics are. They have some really nice gameplay and some really unique stuff, and I really like what Magic can do. They really went all out for this character to give her all the tools necessary to be a very strong character. So yeah, if you want to see some gameplay of Magic with the synergies and with the strategies, I'll be releasing another video hopefully this week. And I'll just be playing 4 games or a game in each aspect, so you guys can definitely see like, oh, look at the strategy, look how this works with this, and so you guys can see that it's not just theory. There's a lot of practice. I play a lot of this game, so when I make these suggestions, they're not just off the top of my head without any thought or actual concrete testing. So there you go. So if you like these series, please say, Steve, write in the comments, yeah, oh, I love this. Please do this hero next. And then, based on what you guys decide or what you guys suggest, I'll just keep going. There's already some videos like that I made in the past. So you can go check out those series where it's just basically like Wolverine Unleashed or X-23 Savage. And I just put these videos and it's a like 4 or 5 games in a row, bam, bam, bam. And you just see the character in solo, how it plays out. So there you go. So you can check out that in the playlist. And until then, guys, I hope you enjoy. I hope you have the time to actually play the game. Peace out, everyone.